Hey everybody, it's Jenna. I've been thinking a lot lately about a certain type of character in superhero and genre fiction. The ones who are cute, visually interesting, have some sort of big personality, and are not usually found in our real world. Whether that means that they are a robot, a superpowered animal, a animal-human hybrid, or something even more extraterrestrial. They are a bright spot in an already great story, to the point of becoming a fan favorite and some sort of merchandising juggernaut. But it doesn't feel right to ever boil them down into just that, or a pet, or a sidekick, or a MacGuffin. Just to name a few. Eagly, Crypto, the entire Super Pet family from the comics, Jeff the Land Shark, Herbie, and of course Rocket and Groot. Hell, I'll even throw Weasel and my boy G.I. Robot under the umbrella as well. There are dozens and dozens more outside of superhero comics, but two impacted me so deeply over the course of this past month that I was inspired to make this video. Chopper from Netflix's live-action One Piece and Rocky from Project Hail Mary. I have instinctively and kind of jokingly started referring to these characters as little guys, and honestly, I think it fits. They don't have to be pint-sized or even clearly gendered to qualify, but there's someone that you feel a specific kind of warmth and earnestness towards. You want to befriend or even protect them, even though you know that they're most likely more than capable of doing the latter themselves. You feel that way because they are active protagonists who matter to the story just like a human character would, but at the same time, their inhuman qualities make them so special that you can't really swap them out for a human character. They're a storytelling tactic that is absolutely nothing new, but it feels like we're at a point where they're being done better and more unabashedly than ever before. And it's happening at exactly the right time. There are so many tangents that this video could go into, in part because, like I said, my little guy moniker isn't just exclusive to aliens or robots or talking or superpowered animals. And because the history of mainstream comics humanizing non-human characters ranges from the funny animal comics of the 40s and 50s to characters like Death's Head and Brahm to We Three, the beautiful and utterly gut-wrenching miniseries from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. But I do think we owe a lot of where we're currently at to those funny animal comics and the ways that they overlapped with the storytelling choices that were already happening in the Silver Age. Once the idea of animal characters doing human things began to flourish in animation, it naturally carried over to the comics. Any Golden Age superhero that you could probably think of most likely shared a magazine rack with a comic starring Donald Duck or Bugs Bunny, or dozens upon dozens of other characters created exclusively for the page. As genres like horror and crime were more heavily scrutinized amid the anti-comics backlash of the 50s, the funny animal genre pushed on. Concurrently to that, the superhero genre gained its footing, relaunching characters or outright debuting new ones, and shifting the foes that they fought away from the cops and robbers of the previous age. More and more threats were extraterrestrial and fantastical in nature, in part because people like DC editor Julie Schwartz also came from a sci-fi background. In addition to one of my favorite pieces of comic history, that DC experienced a boost in sales whenever they put a gorilla on a cover doing human things, the era was filled with gloriously goofy aliens and robots, but sometimes the character design carried over a bit of that funny animal energy. In hindsight, that approach to character design makes sense. It built on the bedrock of what readers already expected from the funny animal comics of the time, and it was something that an artist probably already knew how to draw or could learn to draw and could repeat over and over again as many times as a story requires. And, intentionally or otherwise, these little guys helped build out the publisher's fictional universes, which were just beginning to become more of a concrete thing, instead of just treating every character's feature like its own independent pocket of canon. Whether a character just popped up in one issue or eventually became part of a book's supporting cast, they helped further establish that things in this world were truly fantastical. From there, you couldn't really untangle these cute little guys from these fictional universes, and there wasn't really a reason to. It just made sense that these worlds are already larger than life, so why wouldn't characters be bumping elbows with an animal version of the Justice League, or a friendly robot whose dream is to hunt Nazis? Why wouldn't extraterrestrial life look like a giant tree or a dolphin or a squirrel? And why wouldn't the Guardians of the Universe decide that that squirrel is worthy of joining the Green Lantern Corps? Even as time passed and the medium evolved and the defining comics of a particular moment got darker and grittier, that mindset never fully went away. Sure, some characters faded in and out of the spotlight, as I've explained with Crypto and Comic the Superhorse and G.I. Robot in previous videos. But these little guys still had a presence, and if anything, seeing Chip or Herbie or Rocket Raccoon further illustrated how these decades were evolving around them. And yet, as superheroes made their way into live action and we got to the modern superhero movie template that we know today, that presence was never really reflected on screen. You can blame that on a number of different things. Technical ability and budget, the honestly unfair reputation earned by the Howard the Duck movie, and just an overall focus on the realistic and usually hyper-masculine. As we got into the 2000s with dark costumes and blue beams of light in the the sky and the overall idea that superheroes and all of genre media weren't just for kids anymore, it just seemed like a tall order to fold in a talking animal or a helpful robot, much less give them their own emotional character arc as if they were a human character. You might get an occasional Easter egg here and there or some ungodly modernization, but that was it. I personally will forever be annoyed that Sam Wilson's Red Wing was just a drone. Rocket and Groot were undoubtedly a turning point in the right direction, not just in their emotional arcs, which I'll get to in a bit, but in the way that they were dropped into the popular culture. People didn't need to already know their respective comic histories or the team that they were a part of, and odds are the majority of the audience didn't already know those things ahead of time, but everyone had some sort of frame of reference for a tree and a raccoon. And there was a novelty to seeing how these adorable, talking, fantastical versions of them moved about their fictional world, which up until that point had only scratched the surface of its own potential. You can argue that another turning point was the debut of Grogu, and as cute and as popular as he is, I do feel like those two qualities have frozen him in narrative amber. He became so cute and so popular exactly as he is, so having him grow up in any meaningful way or even learn how to speak would shatter the existing vision that people already have of him. So for the foreseeable future, he's just kind of stuck, making babbling noises, getting new gadgets or a slightly better understanding of the Force, and just being the version of the character that people initially fell in love with years ago. Who knows, the upcoming movie could prove me completely wrong, but I don't think it will just yet. I've seen some people get frustrated at the amount of new little guys, blaming it on Baby Yoda or Baby Groot or just companies wanting to sell as much merchandise as humanly possible. But I think that overlooks some things. Like I said up top, these kinds of characters aren't anything new in storytelling, especially on the scale of a big blockbuster or a long-running comic. And when done right, they're a part of what makes fiction and creative expression so beautiful. A story co-starring a little guy asks us to further suspend our disbelief and fully escape into these fictional worlds. In the words of Grant Morrison, adults approach fiction, quote, demanding constantly that it conform to the rules of everyday life. But those demands become quieter and a little bit sillier once you embrace the in-universe idea of talking animals or aliens or robots. And even though those things don't, quote, conform to the rules of everyday life, so many of these stories have shown that they can still feel incredibly real. Sure, we still get the occasional Sonic the Hedgehog moment, but the past few years have been filled with pretty perfect translations of characters without losing their distinct physical quirks. Live-action Chopper is such a perfect example. According to One Piece creator Eiichiro Oda, the crew of the show, quote, did tend to see Chopper as this living creature at first, concerned about being true to the animal bone structure, for instance, and bringing some realism to his look. So I suggested they think of him as a stuffed toy. If you make him too realistic, it'll go into Uncanny Valley. So think of him as a cute plushie. And then bringing these characters to life requires an extra sense of artistry and care and attention to detail, a step beyond just making a movie or TV show or comic filled with human characters. Whether it's just being a comic book artist who knows how to draw a quirkier looking character, or utilizing VFX and human stand-ins and puppetry to bring a character to life on screen, no two creative processes are exactly the same, and some of them feel like genuine magic. Honestly, half of this video could just be about the Muppets, and how the artistry and invention behind them has made them feel like real people for decades, whether on screen or just out in the world. And I have been voraciously reading and watching so many interviews about how Rocky was brought to life in Project Hail Mary, and the ways that the crew combined puppetry and CGI and on-set improvisation just feel incredibly special. Every day, I know that I categorically get one step closer to seeing what G.I. Robot looks like in live action, and after the Superman robots, I just know that it is going to blow me away. You can roll your eyes or just call it the Baby Yoda effect, but there is something special about the ability to make these otherworldly characters not only feel real and tangible, but honestly adorable. And in the current moment of AI slop and people trying to hack the creative process, it feels like even more of a miracle. And folding in a little guy, a cute plushie like Chopper, a rock alien whose native language is whale song, or an eagle with a taste for lunch meat just adds so much unpredictability to whatever story is being crafted. Just ask Marvel Rivals players whose games are constantly ruined by Jeff the Landshark. Regardless of the little guy's capabilities, there is a sense of innocence about them. them. The way that they react to something or approach a problem, or the way that they instantly judge the character of those around them can immediately make a story so much more interesting. And once you plop these characters into a larger world, they can reveal some really interesting things about the human characters that are around them. Infinity War gets so much mileage out of the largely Earthbound characters meeting Rocket and Groot for the first time. The patience and curiosity required to work with Rocky proves that Grace, a middle school teacher well-versed in both patience and curiosity, was the right person for the mission after all. And the different ways that everyone in Superman reacts to Krypto is such a fun litmus test. I will always love Clark's line about how Krypto isn't even a very good dog, but still deserves to have someone looking out for him. It tells us so much about who Clark is as a person, which is something that he's spending the entire movie trying to find out. And it taps into an emotion that everyone in the audience can understand, even as they've already seen him be a menace throughout the movie. I think that's another big part of it for me. The best little guys can tap into so many aspects of the human experience, despite not being human themselves. There's the reality of being misunderstood or overlooked or vilified by the world around them. But there's also the reality that we can never go home again, or that home is too traumatic to even want to go back to, or that we will never have enough time to spend with the people that we love in the here and now. We have been processing those feelings for centuries, but going on those emotional journeys with these characters can just feel so potent and special. There is so much that can be said about fiction and empathy, especially in our current moment where the latter feels like a precious resource, but it at least makes me happy that these little guys can keep that flame alive in some way. I am absolutely not saying that every story needs a little guy, but I'm glad that we're in a moment that keeps finding new and creative ways to embrace the idea of them. Their creativity and unpredictability and heart, both in front of and behind the scenes, can help a great story hit even harder. And their existences can help showcase the potential of these massive interconnected universes, even in the tiniest of ways. It delights me to know that the events of Clayface are happening in the same world where G.I. Robot has been killing Nazis for decades, and Eagly is the prime eagle, and that One Piece's politics and rings of assassins are indirectly impacting a reindeer earning his doctorate. Sure, both of those statements might sound absurd out of context, but isn't that part of the fun anyway? Who is your favorite little guy character? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. As always, you can find me on social media, especially on Threads at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Merch is available at the link in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.